In just a few days, Americans will head to the polls to make a decision that could shape the future of this nation for years to come. As we approach the pivotal moment of the 2024 election, the nation stands divided, with a clear split between Republicans and Democrats. Fundamentally, elections aren't just about politics. They reflect the values and beliefs of a nation. Concerning America, many believe it has drifted far from its moral and spiritual foundations. The next 4 years will determine whether we restore sanity and morality to this nation or continue down a path of moral decline. The choice before us is not merely political, it is a spiritual one, with lasting consequences for the soul of our country. For Christians, the role of faith in politics is often debated. Some believe Christians should engage in politics to influence society for good, while others argue that we should focus solely on spiritual matters. Here on this channel, we firmly believe that Christians have a responsibility not only to be involved in politics, but also to engage in decision-making, including the choice of who we want as the ruler of our nation. For as long as we live on earth, their policies will affect our lives. Our goal in this video is to guide the public, especially Christians, in understanding American politics and making an informed voting decision. We'll examine the 2024 presidential candidates, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and analyze their policies in light of biblical values. As we go through this process, let's remember that our alignment with a political party or candidate should be based on biblical values, ensuring that we choose our leaders in accordance with our faith and convictions as Christians, rather than personal preferences or societal pressures. Without further ado, let's jump right in. To start, let's take a quick look at the core beliefs of the two main political parties in the United States of America, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. On one hand, Republicans champion conservative values that emphasize a smaller government, fewer regulations, and lower taxes. They believe in individual freedom, advocating that people should have greater control over their lives and businesses. Additionally, Republicans uphold traditional family values and prioritize the protection of religious rights. A core aspect of their ideology is personal responsibility, encouraging individuals to take charge of their own lives and make their own decisions while respecting law and order. On the other hand, the Democratic Party promotes liberal and progressive values. They argue for a more active role of government in supporting citizens, particularly in areas such as healthcare, education, and social programs. Democrats advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and women's rights, including the right to choose one's gender and the right to access abortion. Furthermore, they emphasize the importance of racial and social justice, striving for diversity, equality, and inclusion within society. Now, let's look at the main policies of the 2024 presidential candidates. Let's first start with the Republican candidate Donald Trump. Point number 1: economy. When it comes to the economy, Trump's main focus has been cutting taxes for individuals and businesses. In 2017, he introduced a major tax cut under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, one of the largest in recent U.S. history. Although this cut was designed to provide relief across all income levels, opponents argued it disproportionately benefited the wealthy. IRS data, however, shows that middle-income households saw significant benefits, with tax reductions between 15% and 26% for those earning between $15,000 and $100,000. High-income earners received some relief, but their reductions were generally smaller. With these tax cuts set to expire in 2025, Trump aims to make them permanent if re-elected. He also plans to introduce new tax breaks specifically for businesses manufacturing in the U.S., while raising taxes on foreign companies and imported goods. This strategy aims to encourage domestic production and create more jobs for Americans. The act also made the tax code more progressive, meaning wealthier households paid a larger share of income taxes. And data suggests more Americans moved into higher income brackets after the cuts. Point number 2, immigration. Trump strongly supports tough immigration policies, especially when it comes to illegal immigration. His main plan is to build a wall along the southern border to stop people from crossing without permission and to increase border security. He believes that open borders allow criminals, drug dealers, and human traffickers to enter the U.S. without being properly checked, which he says puts the country's safety at risk. Trump often points out that some illegal immigrants have been involved in crimes, using this to explain why his policies are necessary. He argues that a stronger border and stricter laws will help lower crime rates, especially in states near the border, and protect American jobs by limiting the number of unvetted immigrants entering the workforce. In cities like San Diego, California, and El Paso, Texas, there have been increases in crime and drug-related problems connected to illegal immigration. Trump believes that building the wall would help control these issues by making it harder for people to enter the U.S. illegally, improving security, and protecting the economy. Point number 3, family. Donald Trump's stance on marriage and family strongly aligns with the traditional biblical view that marriage is defined as a union between one man and one woman. He has consistently expressed opposition to the LGBTQ movement, believing that it could undermine traditional family values, which he sees as essential for societal stability. A key example of this is his opposition to the Equality Act, which sought to enhance protections for LGBTQ+ individuals in various sectors, including housing and employment. Trump argues that a society rooted in strong traditional family structures fosters greater moral strength and societal stability. Additionally, Trump advocates strongly for parental rights in education. He believes that parents should have control over the values taught to their children, resisting what he considers government overreach in education. For example, he opposes certain Department of Education-backed curricula, such as critical race theory and gender identity-focused programs, which many Christian and conservative parents argue conflict with their values. Trump argues that these topics are divisive or inconsistent with traditional beliefs, and that parents should have a say in whether these topics are included in their children's education. Although criticized for his past marital failures, Trump's current personal life as a husband and father exemplifies his commitment to traditional family values. He has raised responsible children who actively participate in both family and business, showcasing his dedication to nurturing strong family dynamics. His policies and personal practices reflect a consistent emphasis on traditional family structures and parental involvement in education, reinforcing his alignment with biblical values regarding family. Point number 4, transgender issues. Donald Trump believes in traditional views of gender, meaning he thinks a person's gender should match their biological sex at birth. Because of this belief, he reversed rules from the Obama administration that allowed transgender individuals to use bathrooms that match their gender identity in schools. Trump argues that separate bathrooms for each gender will help protect the privacy and safety of all students. Additionally, he has pushed to stop transgender individuals from serving in the military, as he believes that their presence could affect the military's effectiveness. When it comes to sports, Trump insists on keeping women's categories separate and opposes transgender women competing against biological women. He believes this is necessary to ensure fairness in women's sports. He argues that biological differences, particularly in strength, endurance, and muscle mass, give transgender women an advantage over biological women, potentially skewing competition results. By supporting policies that keep women's categories exclusive to biological women, Trump aims to ensure that female athletes compete on an equal playing field, where outcomes are determined by training and talent rather than biological differences. Point number 5, abortion. Trump argues that reducing abortion access protects the rights of the unborn babies and promotes a culture of life. He advocates against its legalization nationwide, instead proposing that each state should have the right to make its own laws. Rather than promoting abortion, Trump supports a culture of life by encouraging fertility treatments like IVF to help couples who cannot conceive naturally. Point number 6, foreign policy. Trump's foreign policy focuses on an America First approach. During Trump's presidency, one key point of his foreign policy was to reduce U.S. involvement in overseas conflicts. He strived to end endless wars and bring troops home from places like Afghanistan and Syria, successfully negotiating a withdrawal agreement with the Taliban. This effort contributed to a period of stability, as no new wars were started during his time in office. Another important aspect of Trump's foreign policy was his preference for diplomacy over conflict. He took a unique approach by engaging in dialogues with North Korea aimed at nuclear disarmament. His willingness to engage in dialogue rather than resort to military action marked a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy. Trump also withdrew the U.S. from several international agreements, including the Iran nuclear deal. He argued that these agreements did not serve the best interests of the United States and preferred to take unilateral actions to exert pressure on other nations. One of Trump's most notable foreign policy decisions was the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. This move was considered both historically and biblically significant for both Jews and Christians. For the Jewish people, it fulfilled a long-standing divine promise made to Abraham and his descendants. For Christians, this recognition was spiritually important. Jerusalem is not only the site of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, but also a key location in end times prophecies, as highlighted in Zechariah 12. This recognition reinforced the belief that Jerusalem plays a central role in the biblical narrative and the future of both Judaism and Christianity. Additionally, Trump worked to promote peace in the Middle East, particularly through the Abraham Accords, which aimed to normalize relations between Israel and several Arab nations. These agreements were part of his broader strategy to foster stability and cooperation in a historically volatile region. Overall, Trump consistently advocates for reducing military engagement abroad, believing the U.S. should focus on domestic issues instead of prolonging military conflicts. His stance resonates with many Americans who are weary of ongoing wars, especially in Afghanistan, Iraq, and the continuing tensions between Israel and Palestine, as well as the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Point number 7, religion. Donald Trump often faces criticism for his personal morals values, but many supporters believe his policies are good for religious groups and uphold traditional values. He strongly defends religious freedom and opposes laws that he believes limit Christians' rights. His views on LGBTQ+ issues and abortion have made him popular among many Christians, as they align with biblical values. During his time as president, Trump encouraged partnerships between the government and faith-based groups, which allowed more Christian input in decision-making. Although he doesn't openly call himself a born-again Christian, he often talks about his faith in God and Christ and participates in religious events, which appeals to many Christians. Now, let's explore key points of Kamala Harris, the Democratic Party candidate's policies. Point number 1, economy. Kamala Harris's economic plan focuses on reducing income inequality by raising taxes on wealthy people and large companies. The idea is that by taxing those who can afford it, the government can bring in more money. This extra revenue would fund social programs to support low and middle-income Americans in areas like healthcare, education, and affordable housing. While this approach aims to create a fairer society, critics worry about its potential impacts on the economy and job growth. Higher taxes on the wealthy and corporations could discourage investment in businesses, which might lead companies to cut jobs or raise prices, potentially affecting the very people the policies intend to help. This system could also discourage businesses from operating in the U.S., pushing companies to move manufacturing abroad. Such shifts could hurt the domestic job market and increase reliance on government assistance. Critics caution that while government aid provides crucial support, it can sometimes foster dependency, reducing the incentive for financial independence. Over time, this may undermine economic self-sufficiency, which is vital for individuals and communities. Furthermore, many taxpayers feel frustrated when their taxes fund programs they don't support, such as abortion services, gender-affirming care, illegal immigration, and some military actions. This disconnect between taxpayer values and government spending adds to the debate around Harris's economic policies, with some worried about rising dissatisfaction over government spending choices. Recently, this frustration has been amplified as the Biden-Harris administration faced criticism for not being able to adequately support victims of natural disaster, particularly the Hurricane Helene, with FEMA stating that it lacks sufficient funds to respond effectively. This situation has led some to question the allocation of government resources and whether current policies are addressing pressing national needs. Point number 2, immigration. Kamala Harris supports friendlier immigration policies. Although she has recently adjusted her views, she has consistently opposed building a border wall and advocates for a system that allows more people to migrate to the U.S., even illegally, and become U.S. citizens. Her policies aim to protect migrants who entered the country illegally, offering them benefits and protections that were traditionally reserved for legal immigrants and American citizens. Point number 3, family. Kamala Harris is a strong supporter of LGBTQ+ rights, including same-sex marriage and adoption for LGBTQ+ couples. She believes all family types deserve equal legal protection, and her support for the Equality Act shows her commitment to ending discrimination in housing, jobs, and services for LGBTQ+ individuals. Her approach aims to create a society that respects different family structures equally. However, this stance has caused tension with religious groups, especially Christians, who feel these policies conflict with their beliefs and religious freedoms. Some Christians argue that promoting LGBTQ+ rights often forces them into situations where they have to act against their faith. In education, Harris advocates for more inclusive curricula, including topics like diversity, gender identity, and LGBTQ+ rights in schools. Critics, particularly conservative and religious parents, argue that these topics go against their values. Since Harris doesn't have children, some feel she may not fully understand the concerns parents have about influencing their children's values through school programs. Point number 4. Transgender issues. Harris is a strong advocate for transgender rights. She supports using government funds to cover transgender surgeries, including for undocumented individuals and those in prison. Harris believes that everyone should have access to what is referred to as gender-affirming care. She also supports allowing transgender girls and women to compete in women's sports, emphasizing that inclusion is essential for equality. Furthermore, Harris argues that children should have access to gender-affirming care, such as hormone therapy and sex reassignment surgery, stating that this care is crucial for their mental health and well-being. Point number 5. Abortion. Harris is pro-choice and believes that women should have the right to make decisions about their own bodies, including the choice to have an abortion, which is referred to as reproductive health care. She supports laws that allow abortions without giving her position on late-term abortion, which let her opponents assume that she has no term limits and would allow abortion up to the 3rd trimester. Harris argues that women should have access to safe and legal abortion services and emphasizes the importance of protecting a woman's right to choose. Point number 6. Foreign policy. Kamala Harris's foreign policy, in line with the Biden administration, focuses on traditional international engagement through diplomacy, multilateral cooperation, and military actions. This approach emphasizes strengthening alliances and working with other countries to tackle global issues such as climate change, human rights, and international security. Under this administration, the U.S. has increased its military presence and funding for military operations, particularly in support of Ukraine against Russia and Israel amid Middle Eastern conflicts. Harris also supports partnerships like NATO and advocates for global humanitarian engagements. However, critics argue that this approach can lead to more military involvement under the pretense of protecting human rights and often worsens conflicts instead of resolving them. Examples include U.S. military interventions in Libya, where the effort to protect civilians led to the assassination of the leader Muammar Gaddafi, as well as actions in Iraq, Somalia, and Afghanistan, which often resulted in long-term instability. The ongoing situation between Israel and Hamas, as well as Ukraine and Russia, also raises similar concerns, where military responses to humanitarian crises can escalate tensions rather than provide solutions. Point number 7. Religion. Kamala Harris identifies with both Hinduism and Christianity while advocating for respect and inclusion across all religious groups. However, her policies conflict with biblical values and traditional religious beliefs. Harris emphasizes a secular approach to governance, promoting the separation of church and state and ensuring that public policy reflects inclusivity rather than aligning with specific religious or biblical beliefs. Harris has also faced recent criticism over certain actions that appear to contradict her claims of faith. For instance, she chose not to attend the Al Smith Dinner, a significant annual event often attended by leaders of the Catholic Church and politicians. Additionally, during one of her rallies, when some Christians yelled, "Jesus is Lord," she bluntly told them they were at the wrong rally. Now that we've examined the key policies of Trump and Kamala, let's address something that often gets overlooked when discussing these two candidates: their personalities, and how those traits shape their leadership and impact minorities. Let's start with Trump. Trump is often labeled as a racist, fascist, authoritarian, and a threat to democracy by mainstream media and Democrats. But if you look closer, his actions show a different side. Yes, he has a big ego, and sometimes his inability to filter his words gets him into trouble. He speaks bluntly, which can be divisive. But it's also what makes him relatable to many Americans. Interestingly, the same people who criticize him today once admired him when he was a public figure outside of politics. Many in the entertainment world once praised him but turned against him when he decided to enter politics and stand against the establishment. One of Trump's strengths is his boldness. He's willing to challenge the deep state, a system he believes is working behind the scenes to undermine American sovereignty. His willingness to stand up against the establishment has made him a target of constant media attacks, lawsuits, and even assassination attempts. Yet, he continues to fight for what he believes is best for the country. Despite his tough guy image, Trump can be quite funny and humble when interacting with regular people. Many who meet him in person find him approachable and down to earth, a stark contrast to the media portrayal. His ability to connect with everyday Americans is part of what made him popular, especially in 2016. Trump's impact on minorities as president is quite impressive. He signed the First Step Act in 2018, which reduced harsh prison sentences, giving nonviolent offenders, many of whom were Black, a second chance in life. He also signed a bill that provided permanent funding to HBCUs, supporting education and opportunities for Black students across the country. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is often depicted as a compassionate, hard-working, and trailblazing leader by the mainstream media and her party. However, her record reveals a different narrative. Her political journey began when she was introduced into the California political arena by then Speaker of the California Assembly, Willie Brown. Despite him being married at the time, Brown, a powerful figure in California politics, helped her gain positions on influential state boards early in her career. Critics argue that her ties with Brown significantly influenced her rapid advancement, rather than purely merit-based achievements. From 2004 to 2011, during her tenure as District Attorney of San Francisco, Harris pursued tough-on-crime policies that resulted in severe sentences for nonviolent offenders, particularly in drug-related cases. This period saw an increase in incarcerations among Black Americans in California, contributing to already high minority incarceration rates. As Attorney General of California from 2011 to 2017, Harris continued to support policies such as California's Three Strikes Law, which imposed life sentences on those convicted of 3 felonies. Though aimed at violent criminals, the law often affected nonviolent offenders in minor drug cases, disproportionately impacting Black and Latino communities. Additionally, her support of a truancy law, which imposed penalties on parents if their children missed too many days of school, raised concerns about its disproportionate effect on low-income families and minority communities she claims to represent. Critics have argued that her truancy law enforcement mainly prioritized financial incentives tied to school attendance over genuine concern for children's education. Her shifting racial identity has also prompted debate. While Harris has roots in both Indian and Jamaican heritage, critics note that she initially highlighted her Indian background, but later shifted focus to emphasize a Black identity as her political career progressed. Critics argue that this identity shift was a strategy to appeal more to Black voters and evoke the Obama effect worldwide. Black conservative figures like Candace Owens and Judge Joe Brown have challenged her Black identity, accusing her of blackwashing her ancestry while downplaying her Jewish and Irish heritage, which she seems to hide. Additionally, her father, Donald Harris, criticized her for using stereotypical narratives and playing identity politics for political leverage. Many people have been vocal about her identity shift, including Indian Americans, the pop star Janet Jackson, and even Donald Trump. Yet, the sad reality is that we live in a society where questioning the mainstream narrative often leads to being labeled a conspiracy theorist, which is why most people simply go along with the status quo. However, not everyone is gullible regarding the mainstream narrative about Kamala. Her past record and the controversies surrounding her background have led to skepticism about her authenticity and trustworthiness as a leader, causing some minority communities, especially Black men, to lean toward Trump over her. Finally, let's examine how Trump and Kamala's policies align with biblical values. Our focus will be on 3 key issues critical to our Christian faith: abortion, family, and transgenderism, along with the essential aspect of religious freedom. Let's start with abortion. According to the Bible, life is sacred from the moment of conception. Psalm 139, verse 13 to 16, and Jeremiah 1, verse 5 highlight that God forms and knows us even before birth, underscoring the sanctity of life. Abortion, therefore, is seen as taking an innocent life, which contradicts the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," as stated in Exodus 20:13. If you are a Christian and align yourself with so-called reproductive rights, you are also participating in the genocide of unborn babies. Regarding family, the Bible defines marriage as a covenant between a man and a woman, with a family structure that includes a father, mother, and their children. This arrangement reflects the marriage and family structure as outlined in Genesis 2, verse 24 and Ephesians 5. The LGBTQ movement is considered an abomination to God, as referenced in Genesis 19 and Romans 1. Ephesians 6 also teaches that parents have the responsibility to educate their children and instill in them the right values. The government, therefore, has no right to impose school curriculums that go against parents' will. If you are a Christian and align yourself with a party that promotes homosexuality in all its forms and labeled as LGBTQ+, you are also participating in what is considered an abomination to God. Moreover, by aligning with a party that undermines parents' rights to choose the type of education they want for their children, you are supporting a culture that seeks to pervert and indoctrinate children. When it comes to transgenderism, Genesis 1 verse 27 teaches that God created humans male and female, and this binary understanding of gender is foundational in Scripture. Our gender is determined at birth, not by personal choice. According to divine design, a person born with male genitalia is a man, and a person born with female genitalia is a woman. No amount of surgery or gender-affirming care will change this. Deuteronomy 23, verse 1, tells us that no one who has their sexual organs cut off can enter God's presence. If you are a Christian and you align with a party that promotes transgenderism, you are participating in sending souls to hell. Lastly, the Bible calls Christians to be kings and priests as stated in Revelation 1:6. While our worship of God is part of our priesthood, Our involvement in politics is a reflection of our kingship. This is why religious freedom is essential, as it allows us to live out our faith publicly. Acts 5, verse 29 reminds us that we must obey God rather than men. If you are a Christian and align yourself with a party that prevents Christians from invoking the name of God and biblical principles in political affairs, just like Daniel did, you are part of those who are leading this country toward destruction through ungodly and evil laws. As we said at the beginning of this video, our alignment with a political party or candidate should be based on biblical values, not on personal preferences or societal pressures. But if we have to be honest, no true Christian can align themselves with the Democratic Party. This doesn't mean the Republican Party is perfect, but its policies are the closest to biblical values. Ultimately, our allegiance as Christians is to God and His Word, not to a political party or earthly government. 1 Corinthians 11, verse 31 encourages us to judge ourselves so we would not be judged. It's crucial, therefore, to check ourselves and make sure our faith is reflected in everything we do, including politics. As always, thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement helps us reach more viewers and spread awareness about these critical issues. Until next time, stay blessed.